In this multi-step conversion, you are given information which will help us to connect certain units together. Now, in this case, this problem is looking at 32.5 ounces converting into centigrams. So ounces is a unit within the English system. Grams or centigrams is units within the metric system. So we need to be sure that we can recognize how we will relate these relationships to, or these units together. Okay, so you do not have to have memorized all of the ways in which the English units and the metric units relate to each other. You would be given the equivalences. Okay, so from ounces to centigrams, you are given in this problem here that there is 1 pound equals to 16 ounces, and then a pound is equal to 454 grams. Okay, how can we use this information to connect ounces to centigrams? Okay, so the information that connects us between the English units and the metric units here is pounds to grams. Okay, so that's going to be our connection that we want to get to. But how do we get to pounds? We have to first start with our ounces. So we're going to start with making a plan. We start with our ounces, and we're going to convert the ounces into pounds since we have that relationship. And then from pounds, now the English unit of pounds can be converted to the metric unit of grams by using this relationship. Okay, so it's all about making connections. Okay, and now our final conversion is to go to centigrams. So this example is going to have 3 steps, 3 conversion factors we will need here. So the final step will be converting from grams to centigrams. Now that information is not given because that is one of the prefixes that you must have memorized. Okay, so now that we have our plan, we can begin, and we're not going to go through the whole steps of writing out all the conversion factors. I'm going to skip that and just show you how we can just follow the units. Let the units be your guide. Okay, so we begin with our given value of 32.5 ounces. And we're going to follow our plan. Okay, so if we're beginning with 32.5 ounces, and our first step wants us to convert to pounds, what we're going to need is we're going to need to set up a conversion factor in which ounces are on the bottom and pounds are on the top. So which one of these applies pounds and ounces? 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So we can write 16 ounces on the bottom, 1 pound on top. That allows us to cancel these units diagonally. And now our next step is from pounds to grams. Pounds to grams. Which relationship is that? 1 pound is equal to 454 grams. We want to cancel units diagonally to be able to achieve grams. So then we put 1 pound on the bottom, 454 grams on top. Cancel the units diagonally. Then we have one final step, which is going to be the relationship between grams and centigrams. Centi is the prefix that means 100. There is 100 centigrams in 1 gram, 100 centigrams in 1 gram. So anytime that you hear centi, think about century. How many years are in a century? There's 100 years in a century. So that will help you to remember the prefix for centi. So now With that information, you can write that down on the side for yourself to remember. 100 centigrams equals to 1 gram. Okay. So now, if we want to convert our grams into centigrams, we're going to put grams on the bottom, centigrams on top, and then we use the values. 100 centigrams on top, 1 gram on the bottom, cancel the units. Okay. And what units are we left with? Centigrams. That's what we look to achieve. So remember, anytime you're doing these problems, follow the units. Let the units be your guide first. Then all that's left is then just looking at the math that remains. Anything on the top is multiplied, anything on the bottom is divided. So I'm going to just follow from left to right. 32.5. Grab a different marker here. Don't want to pause the video. So we'll do 32.5 divided by 16, because that's on the bottom, then multiply by 454, and then multiply by 100. Okay, so that's going to be the math we would need to use. We do that in our calculator, but then we are also going to practice with significant figures. We want to recognize how many significant figures to round our final answer to. Okay, so in our calculator, we are going to calculate 32.5 divided by 16 times 454 times 100. And in our calculator, what they give us is a lot of numbers. And now remember, we're going to apply the scientific or the significant figure rules. Okay, so in the calculator, what it gives you for this is 92,218.75. Okay, that's what the calculator gives us. But how many sig figs do we have in our calculation? We are starting with 1, 2, 3 significant figures. So the rule of thumb that I want you to follow is whatever number of significant figures you start with, that's going to be the number of significant figures that you end with. Okay, so how can we change 92,218.75 into only 3 significant figures? We will need to apply scientific notation, or we can just round to only the first 3 digits and then add the zeros in the place values. So this value, now looking here, we recognize that the first 3 digits here will be considered significant. 92,200. Now, this 1 here does not round up the 2. So if this number after here was greater than 5, then it would round the 2 up to a 3. But since it's less than 5, then we keep this as 200, 92,200, and then your final units is centigrams. Okay, so that's one way to write it. Or we can write our final answer in scientific notation. 9.22 times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, 4. And the exponent will be positive because this value is greater than 1. So the exponent is going to be a positive 4. And then the units, every value must have units, is going to be centigrams. Okay, so the final answer here for the amount of centigrams in 32.5 ounces is 9.22 times 10 to the 4th centigrams.